What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm the Croc Nick.
I'm Jamin John.
And we have an album review for you. And man, this one's nuts.
This was probably the best time I've had in a while, to be honest.
So we're going to go over the newest album from the Amenta, Revelator. This came out also on the 19th of February on Debamir Morte Productions.
All right, that's not what I wrote, so sweet.
French? Latin? I don't know. Either way, this band formed in 2002 in Sydney, Australia, and that's kind of an asterisk there because they initially were known as Crucible of Agony from 97 to 99. Then they kind of went defunct and then reformed as the Amenta, which that word apparently means the underground in ancient Egyptian, which, yeah, this band definitely lurks there. This is their fourth full length, the first one in 8 years, I believe. They also have 4 EPs. And this actually features Dave Haley on drums from Psychroptic, though he goes by the name Diazanan.
If you've listened to Psychroptic, his drum work is phenomenal, and he does such a good job on this album.
If you've heard the last two Werewolves albums, too, that dude can be speedy as hell when he wants. This is, I guess you could call it industrial death metal, but there is a lot going on. This is a lot of different camps sort of meeting in one ugly, disturbing, but somehow hook-laden and catchy sound.
Yep.
The opening track, an Epoch of Ellipsis, pretty much you get a little bit of sort of muted noise and some screaming, and then an explosion into blast beats, distant riffing. Believe me, we're going to use that word a lot. Atmospheric keys, and this is definitely like something I was really looking into, like in terms of industrial metal. Like, what do I look for? Like, you know, in terms of like albums I think of that are industrial metal. You know, Strapping Young Lad, Ministry, Fear Factory.
Definitely Fear Factory.
This has that feel. Like, this isn't just like, you know, like layered ambient keys left and right. There are samples of machinery and scraping and just noise.
The sound is just ugly and tortured and bleak and
agonized. And then when you add the vocalist on top, which, my God, this dude is having fits in the vocal booth. The vocals are super layered. There's lots of filters on them, but you can definitely tell this guy can sing and scream and pretty much do anything they asked him to do, which all of it was probably really disturbing. This has such an interesting feel, like the layers of him like doing multiple takes and then adding filters on top of that and harmonizing and not harmonizing with himself. Like, sometimes it sounds like he's shouting back at himself in certain points. It is just an insane sounding listen, and this is just the first track we're getting into.
Yeah.
There's a point where the song just drops out to like industrial drums and noisy ambience, and this is sort of a theme on this album in terms of the ambience and these little dropouts to build tension, because there's always something going on in the background.
They do such a good job of that.
Ramping up the hostility.
As far as the aggression is concerned, the song Sporiastasis, I think I said that right.
I think you said that right. First take. Bravo.
Yeah, that song is just heavy as nuts right from the beginning, but also it sticks with that really ambient feel too. There's so many layers on this, but this song is sour lemons all day.
Like big, legit death metal sections too. And man, the footwork that Dave Haley turns in on here, and it's really interesting to hear like the dissonant guitars match up with these keys that are doing all sorts of stuff. It's like a symphony in hell.
Yeah.
Like, it's just disturbing layers of stuff they can just throw on there, but it all syncs up really well, and the atmosphere is such a big thing on here.
It's like you said earlier, it's so emotive. I mean, this is again another record you can feel the weight and the oppression, and I mean, so many times I just thought like, man, this is really, really void of hope.
But I mean, you still get loads and loads of hooks in here. Overpass, another great example. This has a really cool sort of off-time breakdown sort of rhythm with these pockets of double bass flurries. And I mean, honestly, this is the one that gave me like the big Fear Factory demanufacture or
anything Devi.
Strapping Young Lad City.
Dude,
I mean, it's City. I had to think of the most disturbing album that Debbie did, and that album still just rings true in terms of, man, this dude.
Because it's got those angry vocals, but they're still melodic, and they're still, I don't get it.
It's really interesting how he kind of layers these vocals. Like, you have these wailing screams, but, you know, all of a sudden you get this operatic vibrato that comes out, and it's like, oh, that's actually pleasant. But man, I get that this dude is just furious at something. It's a lot of like screaming into the void and such, and believe me, this whole album stares into the void and does not blink.
And the drum work in Overpass too, that's some of my favorite drum work on the whole album, because it's got blast beats, and then it's got the times where it slows down and gets this kind of like funky ghost notey thing going.
Great grooves.
Oh,
like,
man.
This one was just like headbang
Well,
city.
and that song too, Overpass, is more of a uniformed thing. This band just transitions all over the place, and the transitions are so buttery smooth, but they go into some really weird parts.
Yes.
And this isn't so much like that, at least on this song. It's very uniformed.
But this album was definitely more than just, you know, blast beats and just fury and anger. There are some really interesting songs in here that kind of go off of that track. Seer Money and Silent Twin. Seer Money, I think I'm saying that right, S-E-R-E, not sure. This is just sort of a straightforward kind of groovy, almost like industrial rock song. Definitely notes of like Killing Joke, and strangely enough, the riff in it reminded me a lot of like later Satyricon, like the more rocky stuff that people tend to not like. I still think it's okay. But it has a really cool hook, and this is just like an interesting song in terms of them writing maybe the most accessible song on here.
Well, the chorus reminded me a lot of the band Burst.
Yeah.
Yep.
The bridge, I think, is pretty cool. You also get some big anthemic oys, which, you know, Australia, Aussie, Aussie, oi, oi.
Oi, oi. I know some people that are going to make fun of us.
Yeah, no. We know. These guys probably drink snake venom. I mean, they're Australian.
Yeah, right? That's what y'all do, right?
They've fought more kangaroos than me, which is 0, so. The song is interesting. It's still heavy, it's still furious, but it's very tuneful, and it just kind of has like a straightforward rock hook. And then you get to Silent Twin, which is somehow the darkest track on here, but it's all acoustic guitar and just samples and keys and ambience and creepy vocals.
Yeah, the opening kind of reminded me of Mastodon's Joseph Merrick, the last track on Leviathan.
I got some like heavy Nine Inch Nails vibes.
That too.
It's just oppressive and bleak. I love the vocal calisthenics.
I do too, dude. Woo!
Shifting from this sort of groan that is layered and staticky. Like, this has a, like the 90s industrial feel, like, you know, Al Jorgensen sort of shrieking into a bullhorn sort of sound.
Yeah.
But again, he's just kind of grumbling. And then you get these pockets of like big 80s wailing, or at least like Devin Townsend's version of that.
Yeah.
And it's just a really interesting feel. Like, just the fact that this acoustic guitar is playing a really pretty melody, but underneath it is just ugliness.
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of Pantera's Suicide Note Part 1.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, just kind of that droning sound in the background, except this is way more tortured and creepy. The big one on here for me, well, I mean, all these songs I thought were really solid.
Yeah.
But Twine Towers really stands out as the big epic, not just because it's the longest track in here, but this one really works well with the whole peaks and valleys and building tension. Everything starts out very quiet, and you can slowly feel the tension and atmosphere start building on this one. And boom, into a really distant but melodic hook. Like, this is a nice kind of slow to mid-tempo song, but is driven by a pummeling rhythm section on here. Haunting vocals, of course, because that's
the theme of this album, for sure.
Haunting. Even though they're clean, they're actually kind of like tuneful in this, but they're still very disturbing. Now it drops out again, which is kind of an interesting thing, and it is like the whole build up again, that big slow build. But when it comes back even heavier. Towards the back end of the song is some of the heaviest moments in the album.
The chug. I mean, would you call it a breakdown? I'm not sure what that was, but the chug on the breakdown is so. Just it's just
heavy.
Heavy. Oh, heavy, oppressive.
Yeah.
Soul crushing.
Yeah. I didn't bring my soul to this review, luckily, because I mean, it wouldn't have survived this album.
It was sucked out of my body anyway. By the time we get to like the second song, there was no soul left.
Into the cold, dark void of space, where this album was recorded.
The album really transitions well into then Parasite Lost. I like the
Play on
words there.
Parasite Lost. Clever.
Starts with kind of the same hooky atmosphere as Twine Towers does. Actually, I wrote a hook in the beginning. It just kind of jumps into this. I don't want to say happy-go-lucky because there are no happy moments on this album.
Happiness was not invited to the recording
not at
of this
all.
album.
It's really like downtrodden and melodic too. Just weird.
I really like this, and a little bit that kind of carried over from Twine Cities is, at least on these two tracks, there is a bit of like a Gojira nod.
Yes.
Just in terms of like the riff structure, like, you know, the big chuggy moments, and then you get these like big dissonant tags, which just kind of sounds like Gojira anyway. And a band I hadn't thought about in years, actually, was Nemec, but with an M first.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I have that record.
It kind of has that like weird cyber metal feel, which again, the ambience on here, it seems like it could work with like black metal too, but this still screams very industrial. And the fact that there are some spots in here that the vocals don't necessarily sound like they're like carrying a tune as much as it's like angry spoken word, but staticky and like crackly, like it's coming through like a CB radio or something like that.
Like angry, but it's also pleading too.
It's desperate, and you can feel it. And that's pretty much the thing on the whole album, is you can feel it. Now, Passover, I think, was particularly interesting in terms of wild transitions. In terms of going from one extreme to the other. Opens up with a pummeling breakdown, again, very reminiscent of Fear Factory, and then dramatically shifts to what I would call industrial funeral doom.
Yep, that's what I said. For sure.
Strange, like it just kind of moves into like esoteric territory or Ahab, but it has some of the catchiest vocals on the entire album. Like, clean vocals are all over this album. This isn't just a harsh vocal album, clearly, because we brought up some of that, but they're really all over. They're very prevalent, but you don't lose the intensity. Just because they're clean vocals, you don't lose that raw death metal or just extreme metal as a bass thing feel. It is heavy all the time.
Like, towards the end of this record, I started to feel bad for the vocalist. Like, there's just not a moment where it deviates from that feeling of hopelessness. You can feel it. You can feel the emotion on this record. You're just like, damn, dude, that sucks.
I'm not sure I entirely understood everything you were talking about, but it sounds like it was a rough time.
Yep.
In terms of any, like, negative aspects, I mean, sometimes I think the vocals could have come up, but it feels very odd because they're at different levels at different times in the same song. Like, it can just shift. Like, all of a sudden, like, one scream will be louder than the next, but I think that's kind of part of the weird cathartic listen of this.
Yeah, yep.
And the little interlude, Wander Lost, not Wanderlust, it's cool, it's creepy, it would weird out anyone that listens to it, but it doesn't seem like it builds to the next track, which is Overpass, and that is just a nasty track.
To be honest, I would have closed the album with that, I think.
Yeah, actually.
That's kind of, it kind of segues for the end.
A little bit. I mean, that would be, I was like, yeah, well, here's all hope is lost. This is it. There's nothing left except for noises. Overall, this was a very immersive listen. Like, I was drawn in. There is so much going on in this album, and it just sounds so oppressive. But again, hook-laden. It doesn't, like, let you go, really. It just kind of holds on to you and is like, you're going to finish listening to me, and it may or may not hurt you. So overall, I'm going to give this 4.5 stars. I really, really dug this. And honestly, this is the first time I've sat down and jammed an entire album from the Amenta. I've heard some of their past stuff. I thought it was good. This is really kind of its own thing. These guys are on an island. It's called Australia, but also musically. It's just nuts sounding. The amount of extreme everything blended to make this album, bravo. This is sick. Go out and get it. I ordered it halfway through listening to it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it 4.5 stars. I adored this. This was almost like a palate cleanser for me. Out of all the music that's come out lately and all the, not that I'm not against, like, you know, nasty death metal albums, but this was just, I enjoyed every track. It's more like once it reeled me in, it had me hooked.
I mean, it's still riff city, too. Like,
yeah.
That's the really cool thing, too.
Yeah, there are chugs and riffs and just parts where it is just downright like, all right, here's where you die. I like the production on it. And I like just that feeling of music, that nasty, ulcerate, you know, type atmosphere. Great shit.
So if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up. And if you are new to the channel, subscribe because we do stuff like this all the time. Also, we have a giveaway going on right now. Once we hit 4,500 subs, which we just hit 4,400. So it's coming up. We have a nice little package of a vinyl and 3 CDs that we're giving away to one of you lucky viewers. So yeah. I mean, and thank you guys. Thank you guys once again.
Crap.
I feel like I'm saying thank you a lot, but you guys earned all my thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a lot of fun to do. Got to listen to a lot of cool metal, talk to a lot of cool people.
Yep.
And I absolutely love doing this, and I want to keep doing this. I'm pretty sure he does too.
I do. And now that I'm finding more time too, I've got a lot of things planned. I know we've all got kind of a lot of things planned for the upcoming year here, and looks like we may get a return to music maybe in the summertime.
Fingers crossed.
And as you notice, I'm wearing a Crowbar shirt. The Crowbar live stream is this evening, so that'll be cool.
So yeah, plenty of stuff in the future, and thank you for your continued support. And with that, we will catch you later.